Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really aiming to get past those, idealized movie versions of teaching. We want to cut straight to what the job actually demands, the kind of foundational realities. We've been digging into some core texts, especially those who can teach. And our goal here is simple. Understand that teaching isn't just about delivering facts. It's this complex mix of, well, self-awareness, social responsibility, and knowing how to teach effectively.
That's such a critical starting point because so many people, they enter teaching with this really pure passion, right? A deep love for their subject, maybe physics, maybe literature. But what they find out pretty quickly is that success isn't just about knowing your stuff. It's about navigating these really complex social dynamics, ethical questions, and frankly, the nuts and bolts of instruction that go way beyond just the subject itself.
Okay, let's unpack that motivation piece first then. People thinking about this career, what are the sort of surface level draws, the extrinsic stuff?
Well, the sources point to the reliable factors, things like job security, which is a big one for many people. Good benefits packages are often mentioned. And yeah, that classic appeal of the time off, summers, breaks, time for family or other pursuits.
Okay, but those things can be shaky, can't they? Like, if budgets get tight, salaries stagnate.
Yeah. Hmm.
How much do those extrinsic things really sustain someone? What about the deeper stuff, the intrinsic motivation? What keeps people going when things get tough day to day?
That's the real engine, isn't it? The intrinsic drive. It's that desire for intellectual stimulation, personal satisfaction, and maybe most of all,
Yeah.
that feeling you can have a positive influence on 25 or maybe 150 kids every day. That drive to make a difference. And of course, sharing the subject that genuinely excites you.
Right, that passion. But here's where the source material gets really interesting, maybe even a bit counterintuitive. Sometimes that intense passion for a subject, it can actually backfire. They talk about Julia, right? The chemistry whiz who ended up teaching fifth grade science.
Oh, that case study is perfect. It really challenges that passion is everything idea. Julia absolutely loved chemistry, no question. But she really struggled to translate that high school, maybe even college level enthusiasm down to elementary kids. Her supervisor pointed out she was, and this is a quote, drowning these kids with information.
Drowning them.
Yeah, and doing all the work herself because she wasn't really teaching them how to learn science at their age level.
And the source used the word irresponsible for that approach, didn't it? That feels quite strong for someone who just loves their subject. Why frame it that way?
Well, irresponsible sounds harsh, but the source argues it's because it's actually quite common. When teachers get hyper-focused on the part they love, they might neglect other essential skills the students need. Maybe it's basic grammar because they prefer literature analysis, or maybe study skills get overlooked. That neglect is seen as irresponsible because it impacts the student's overall education and, sets up problems down the line for the next teacher. It's about instructional balance, not about judging her passion.
That really underscores the need to be a reflective practitioner, constantly looking at your methods, not just your good intentions.
Exactly. And, if we look at the bigger picture of teacher satisfaction, you see this tension play out. Teacher satisfaction, a percentage saying they were very satisfied, actually hit a pretty encouraging high point, 62% back in 2008. But then it just plummeted, down to 39% only 4 years later, by 2012.
Wow, that's a massive drop, almost half.
It is huge.
Yeah.
And the analysis directly links that sharp decline to the economic recession. You had budget cuts, bigger class sizes, stalled salaries, the external supports were crumbling. But, and this is really important, that internal drive, that passion, it stayed remarkably high. Even during that low point, 79% of teachers strongly agree they were still passionate about teaching.
So it's like the personal passion can endure, but job satisfaction really depends on those systemic supports being there. When the system struggles, satisfaction drops, even if the love for the job remains.
That's the core tension. And, we should probably touch on how the public perceives teaching, too, because movies like Dead Poets Society, they create a certain image.
Oh, definitely. They often skew the picture, don't they? You see more male teachers than is typical, mostly high schoolers, maybe more minority teachers than the average, and often these tiny, manageable class sizes.
Right. These films focus on the big dramatic moments. But the source reminds us the true drama of teaching is quiet, long-term, and terribly real.
It's in the day-in, day-out consistency, not just the one big inspirational speech.
Precisely. It's the slow burn.
Okay, so we've got the individual teacher navigating passion and external pressures, but they operate within this huge system of the school. Let's zoom out. What does society actually expect schools to do beyond just teaching the core subjects? The sources lay out four main purposes, right?
Yes, beyond the obvious Intellectual purpose, developing academic skills. The three R's and all that, schools have three other really significant societal roles.
Okay, first is the political and civic role, making sure we have citizens who can participate in democracy.
Exactly. Think Thomas Jefferson, the idea that an educated populace is essential to prevent tyranny. Schools teach civic responsibility, how government works, things like that.
Then there's the economic function, getting kids ready for the world of work.
Absolutely. Schools often emphasize, sometimes implicitly, the kinds of traits employers value. Being on time, working with others, meeting deadlines, showing commitment. It's job preparation in a way.
And the fourth one is social, helping kids learn how to fit in, how to navigate social rules.
Yeah, learning the unwritten rules of society, how to cooperate, how to manage conflict, how to be part of a community. These are learned skills, and school is a primary place for that.
So given those broad goals, how do schools actually do the socializing part? The sources mention two main philosophical approaches.
Right, the first is what's called cultural transmission. This view sees the school's job as basically passing down the best of the existing culture, the knowledge, values, and traditions accumulated over generations, kind of preserving the status quo, in a sense.
Okay, transmitting the established wisdom. And the alternative view, social reconstructionism, what's that about?
Social reconstructionism is quite different. It argues schools shouldn't just transmit the culture. They should actively try to improve it. Advocates like William Ayers, mentioned in the source, believe schools should equip students to be agents of change, to identify societal problems like poverty, inequality, environmental issues, and work towards solutions.
So it's much more about activism and challenging the status quo rather than just preserving it.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from just learning about the world to learning how to change it.
That contrast really shapes the classroom, I imagine. And this leads perfectly into one of the most fascinating concepts from the reading, the idea of three different curriculas operating at the same time.
Yes, this is such a key insight. We all know the formal or explicit curriculum. That's the official stuff. The math standards, the history syllabus, the science experiments, what's planned.
And most people are aware of the extracurriculum, too. Sports teams, drama club, yearbook, school-sponsored activities outside of class time.
But the real eye-opener is the hidden or informal curriculum. This is the unspoken stuff.
What students learn implicitly.
Precisely. From the way the school is structured, the daily routines, the rules written and unwritten, the reward systems, even the physical layout of the classroom or the building itself. Things like learning to wait your turn, raising your hand, competing for grades.
And here's the critical point the sources make. When the hidden messages conflict with the official, formal lessons, which one usually wins out?
Many observers argue the hidden curriculum often carries more weight. It's what students experience day after day. So if the formal curriculum talks about collaboration, but the hidden curriculum, through grading curves or seating arrangements, constantly emphasizes individual competition.
Students learn that competition is what really matters. That hidden lesson can be incredibly powerful, shaping attitudes and behaviors long-term, often towards compliance and fitting in.
Exactly. And that hidden curriculum becomes even more complex and frankly more critical when you consider the diversity in today's classrooms.
Right. The sources point out that about 44% of school-age kids are from minority backgrounds now. That creates a situation where teachers really need to recognize cultural differences.
And crucially, see them as differences, not necessarily deficits. That's the key phrase. It's about bridging cultural gaps, not assuming one way is inherently better.
This is where culturally responsive teaching comes in, isn't it? As an antidote to what the sources call subtractive schooling.
Yes, subtractive schooling is a powerful term.
What does it mean, exactly? What's being subtracted?
It refers to school environments or practices where students feel they have to leave their home language, their culture, their identity at the door to succeed. Their background isn't seen as a resource. It's seen as something to be overcome or replaced. It essentially subtracts part of who they are, which can lead to alienation and hinder learning. Culturally responsive teaching fights that. It builds on the student's background.
You see this challenge very clearly with English language learners, or ELLs. They make up about 10% of all students nationally.
And the diversity within that group is huge. The sources mention nearly 400 different languages spoken in students' homes across the U.S. Spanish is the most common, obviously, but hundreds of others too.
So how do schools handle that linguistic diversity? There are different approaches, right?
Broadly, two main models are contrasted. There's the transitional approach. The main goal there is rapid English acquisition. Students get support in their native language, but the aim is to move them into mainstream English-only classes as fast as possible.
Okay. Getting them into English quickly, what's the other model?
The other is often called maintenance or developmental bilingual education. This approach aims to preserve and develop the students' native language skills while they're also learning English. The idea is that being bilingual or multilingual is an asset, something to be cultivated, not an obstacle to overcome.
And does the evidence show which approach works better?
Well, the sources highlight the success of newer models, like two-way dual language programs. These mix native English speakers and ELLs in the same classroom, teaching content in both languages. And the results. They report higher reading and math scores for all the students involved, both the ELLs and the native English speakers. It suggests that embracing multilingualism benefits everyone.
That's really compelling data. Okay, shifting gears slightly, but still under the umbrella of inclusion, students with disabilities. The legal side here is huge. We have to talk about IDEA.
Absolutely. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, it fundamentally changed everything. Before IDEA, which originally passed as PL 94-142, many children with disabilities were simply denied access to public education. They might be institutionalized or just kept at home.
So IDEA established their right to schooling.
Yes, it established the right to FAE, a free, appropriate public education. That's the cornerstone. Appropriate means tailored to the individual child's needs.
And that led to the IEP, the Individualized Education Program.
Exactly. The IEP is the roadmap. It's a legally binding document developed by a team, parents, teachers, specialists, sometimes the student outlining specific measurable goals and the supports needed to reach them. FAPE and IEPs revolutionized special education.
It really shifted the focus from exclusion to integration and support.
Completely. Now think about the other end of the spectrum, gifted and talented students. What strategies do schools typically use for them?
The sources mentioned two primary approaches. One is acceleration.
Right. Acceleration means letting them move through material faster, skipping grades, taking advanced courses, compacting the curriculum, learning beyond their age norms.
And the other main strategy is enrichment.
Enrichment focuses on adding depth and breadth rather than just speed. So staying with their age peers, but exploring topics in more detail, doing independent projects, tackling more complex problems within the standard curriculum framework.
Okay. And finally, within this diversity and inclusion piece, there's a really critical ethical point about supporting LGBT students.
Yes, absolutely critical. The sources emphasize the teacher's responsibility here because, sadly, LGBT students face significantly higher rates of bullying and harassment. Creating a safe and supportive environment isn't optional. It's an ethical imperative.
And how do teachers do that effectively? What's the key strategy?
The source material is very direct about this. It says, establish classroom guidelines about name-calling, and crucially, challenge homophobic remarks everywhere and all the time.
Everywhere and all the time, no exceptions.
Exactly. That consistency, that proactive stance is what builds trust and safety for vulnerable students. It has to be visible and unwavering.
Wow. Okay. Pulling all this together, it paints a picture of teaching that's so much more than just knowing your subject. It requires this deep self-awareness, understanding those powerful hidden messages schools send, and having a whole toolkit of strategies, legal, instructional, ethical, to meet the incredible diversity of learners today. It's complex.
It really is. And if you connect all these practical realities back to the bigger picture of educational philosophy, you start to see how a teacher's daily choices often reflect deeper beliefs. Your decisions about curriculum, classroom management, how you handle diversity, they tend to align, consciously or not, with one of two broad philosophical camps mentioned in the text.
Which are?
Well, on one side, you have the subject-centered philosophies. Think perennialism or essentialism. These prioritize transmitting the established cultural knowledge, the classics, the core subjects. The focus is on content mastery and intellectual discipline.
Okay, focus on the knowledge itself. And the other side.
That's the child-centered camp. Philosophies like romanticism or progressivism. Here, the focus shifts to the learner, their interests, their curiosity, their social and emotional development. Education is about fostering growth, problem-solving, and adapting to the child's needs.
So one prioritizes the wisdom of the past, the other prioritizes the potential of the individual student.
That's a good way to put it. And neither is necessarily right or wrong, but they lead to very different classrooms.
So the final thought for you, our listener, as you think about teaching or reflect on your own education, it really comes down to this. Where do your instincts lie? Do you feel the pull to rigorously ensure students master the accumulated wisdom of our culture? Or are you more driven to spark their individual curiosity, letting them lead the way in solving problems relevant to them?
Thinking about that tension, that choice, that's really at the heart of becoming a thoughtful, reflective teacher. It's an ongoing question, not a final answer.